Hey guys, it's me. I am back again, and I promise this is the last one of these car videos that I'm going to do where we're actually working on the cars that I'm alone, because we're pretty much wrapping up the Chevelle today. So you get to see in the last video that we did get this thing fired up, we got it running, but there's a lot more odds and ends that I got to fix up on that. So the dash still needs to be picked up. The dash pad is still not back on because I haven't taken care of all the wires that are actually under the dash yet. I got to clean up the interior of the car. We got to clean up the exterior of this car. This thing is covered in filth because it was uncovered. Normally I have it covered in the garage over the winter. It was uncovered all winter because we were working on it. So it's got a thick coat of grime and dust and disgustingness on it that needs to be cleaned off. I've got to basically hose the whole thing down and go over it. Even the engine bay probably should get a little bit of a hosing. Well, it depends on whether or not I'll do that right now or not. But there's some things to do, and I want to get those things wrapped up, and then I want to be able to get the car out on the road and drive it around. I want you guys to be able to get some footage and get some videos of what it's like driving this thing around and what it can do. And I also want to be able to make sure that I can shake this thing down because we got some cruises coming up, and I want to make sure I have confidence that this thing will be able to go the distance. Mike and I did take it for a quick spin yesterday, but it was literally only about a 10-15 minute drive. It was just around the pond that's near the home. So we just did that as a quick loop just for giggles, just to make sure it would run, and it performed fine, but we really need a little bit more of a shakedown. So that's what we're going to do today. We'll sort of take you through a little bit of that. But first, I'm going to put on some tunes and do some cleanup, because this place is a disaster area. Like, we're like one more misplaced item away from this becoming a FEMA site. It is gross. I haven't cleaned up since we really started working on this stuff. So I'm going to do a quick cleansing around the garage right now. Just listen to some tunes, maybe give you guys a little bit of time lapse, couple seconds of watching me clean. I'm sure it's going to take me forever. So when I catch up back with you, we'll be in the car doing the dash tuning for the Dakota Digital dash, getting that all set up. Enjoy. Okay, well, the garage is about as clean as I care to spend the time on making it. So it's time to now get into getting this dash set up. So Mike and I took this car for a cruise yesterday, and it does turn out that most of the gauges are working and working fine. So the oil pressure gauge seems to be working fine. The interesting thing about that is it doesn't work on cranking. So when we were trying to crank the car yesterday to get the pump primed and get oil pressure to the engine, while we were cranking, it just reads 0. However, once you let off the key and you stop cranking, the pressure kicks back up to where it was, and then slowly drops. So we were able to see that it did have some pressure that it was getting. So it does work. Water temperature also is working. That was giving us a good reading yesterday, and the voltage also appears to be reading. All of them seem to be reading normal numbers. Of course, it's kind of impossible to really verify all of this, that it's exact, but they seem to be tracking where we would expect them to, so I have no reason to believe they're wrong. We also gauged it with the speedometer yesterday, so Mike was in the passenger seat with me, and he was running his phone with GPS on it. And calling out the mile per hour that he was seeing on his GPS, and it was dead on to what I was seeing on the speedometer, which is just kind of freaky, actually, because I hadn't done any programming on this. So it appears to be running accurate to my car, to my tires, all that stuff, like right out of the box, which is weird, but I'll take it. You'll take those little wins wherever you can get them. However, the dash still says set up whenever you turn this on. So we're going to go through the setup venture now on this, just to make sure that we've got everything as dialed in as we can be, and we don't get any weird setup messages, and we get this all dialed in the way we want to. Now, I haven't put the dash pad back on yet because I still want to make sure I have access to all the wiring in case something needs to change during this setup. I want to make sure that we're pretty much 100% before I go ahead and button that all back up. And one of the things that we have here is a dash switch. This is part of my programming setup. So this little rocker switch is designed to get us through the setup program and be able to switch through menus and things like that. Ultimately, I am probably going to need a place to bury this. I may bolt this to the underside of the dash, someplace fairly discreet, just so that I have a place to access it when I need to, when I want to change the screens. We'll see how that goes. But for right now, I have the instructions open in front of me, and I got my pair of old man goggles, so I can use this to sort of read what's in front of me. But there is a pretty detailed setup here. So you're supposed to put the key in and press and hold SW1. This rocker switch has a single slash on the left side and a double slash on the right side. So the single slash is switch 1 and the double slash is switch 2. So hold it over to switch 1 while turning the key AC power on. And it says setup across all 3. I can release that. And now speed setup is here. That's the start of the setup switch. So I can advance through this menu by clicking this. Okay, so I'm on the speed menu now, so it says press and hold to enter the sub menu. Okay, so now I'm in sender. All right, so I just was able to program through speed to tell it that I want the normal speed sensor, which is their sensor, wired straight into it, because that's what I have. I'm not going to go through the auto calibration because I already have that, and I'm not going through adjust mode. So now it's the service countdown meter. This allows me to set the service countdown, and I think we will do that. All right, so I just set this so that it's going to give me a warning once I get to 3,000 miles on service. So basically, it'll tell me when I need an oil change, kind of like a modern car would, which is kind of a cool thing to remind me of, especially for a car that I'm not driving all the time. So the sender is our unit. What do they tell me to pick? So it's the 100 PSI sensor. That is the normal. We're done there. Now we'll do the warning. So this is the warning for low oil pressure, and so the default is just at 10 PSI. So we're going to go with that. I think that's fine. And then we don't need to test the oil, and then we're done on oil setup. So now set up for fuel. All right, so this one we're going to set up the fuel sender. And here I already peaked. I know what we're looking for is the GM90. And I should be done with fuel. Now I do have a question on my end as to whether or not the actual fuel sender unit is working. I suspect that the float may be punctured and therefore a little droopy at best if straight up not working. So that might be sluggish at best. So if this thing doesn't work, I don't think it's going to be the fault of the dash. I think it's going to be something on my end. So we'll find out. All right, so now lighting setup. So the dim level on the lighting. Yeah, I do not like dim lights. I like them bright. So we're going to go with, whoops, now I screwed that up. So it's cool, you can actually set a day level to these things, which is nice. So what we're going through now is changing where the different messages will show up on screen when error messages and stuff show up. And so this becomes important in terms of what's going to show up on our display. I'm sure that I'm going to change my mind on some of these. So we'll see where this goes. All right, I think we're done with displays now. Now we're setting up info. All right, I think that we're all set here. And all we're going to do now is turn the key off and back on. Yeah, and we are set. And it looks like we got fuel. So our fuel gauge is actually working. Shocking. I don't know if it's correct, but it's doing something, so that's cool. And I will take that every second of the day. So our clock we need to set. It looks like it's still looking for speed calibration, so I think we are going to have to do that. And I need to set up this last menu, which I'm not sure why that one is left blank. So we're going to have to check into that one. Okay. All right. So I think we've got that set up to my satisfaction. So that means it's time to just button up the dash pad. So I've got some wires here that I've got to just kind of crop into shape. Some of them are left a little bit long intentionally to make sure that I had enough space to get them in here. I've got to anchor my speaker once again. Some of the bolts and nuts sort of fell apart. I'm going to bolt this thing in place to the dash because just from this process, it's apparent to me that I am going to need that on a regular basis in the future, so I can't tuck it away. It's going to have to be accessible to me and accessible to me in the driver's seat. So I'm going to make that happen. And once all that stuff is tucked away and cleaned up, we'll go ahead and put the dash pad on, and then we'll roll this thing outside and get to cleaning, and then get it out on the road so you guys can see it driving. Well, it's been a hot minute since I've cleaned out the inside or the outside of this car, so we're going to go ahead and do that now. I don't think the interior is bad enough that I need the shop vac, so I'm just going to use my little cordless car vac, and hopefully that's going to get the job done. Already taken the mats out. Let's get to the inside. You know, I spent the whole winter without a battery in the car, never worrying about closing the doors. Now I gotta remember, I gotta close the doors again because the dome light works. So one of the things that I still have to do is put a fan shroud on here. This was just honestly, just a slip of my mind. I had intended to put this fan shroud back on, but didn't really think of it until I already had the fan installed. And at that point, I just didn't want to lose momentum. So we drove it around yesterday without the fan shroud, but honestly, this fan is so far away from the radiator that if I have any shot at keeping this thing cool, it's got to have the shroud on it. So I'm going to get that shroud on here by hook or by crook. It's probably going to be zip ties and prayers and duct tape, but that's okay because it's not a long-term fix. I'm about a month or so away from getting a aluminum radiator with electric fans that we'll put in here instead. So this is really just something temporary for now, but nonetheless, I do want to get it done. So I'm going to get myself a ratchet and we'll get 4 bolts out of here to remove the fan, and then we'll put the shroud on. All right, shroud is in. Didn't fight me too bad. I had one of the clips kind of break on me, so I had to nut and bolt it instead, but otherwise we're good. The bottom is zip tied. I don't have anything to stud into in the bottom of that, but that's the way it was in before, and this thing is solid. It's not going anywhere, and the fan has free movement all the way around. We should be fine. Also, check the coolant while we were here. It's still topped off. So I think we got a little bit more driving around to do, but it's looking pretty good. I always like to start off my car washes with the wheels first. They're the filthiest thing in the car usually, and the thing that requires a lot of attention. So I'm using this Diablo Hydro Clean. I don't know. It's something from Chemical, guys. It works pretty well. It smells pretty good, and it's pretty easy to get. So I use two different brushes here. One of them is a harder scrub brush that I use on the tires because they're a little bit more durable. And the other one's a really soft brush that I used on these polished aluminum wheels. The polished aluminum is really, really tough to keep going. I wouldn't necessarily advise it, but it's what I'm stuck with right now. So I use that soft brush to really clean in here well, and then hose the whole thing off when I'm done. And just work around my car, all four corners. And you're just seeing one half here, but trust me, the other side was pretty much the same thing. Wheels look good. Now it's time to hose this thing down and wash the whole thing over. So you can see beforehand, she's looking not terribly bad on camera. But you can see here, I don't know if you can see it, maybe not. There's just a real gross coating of dust. Maybe you can see if I rub here. You can see that difference all over the whole roof. What's there is everywhere. It's on the window. You can see it, handprints that are missing here from where we pushed it in the back. It's pretty gross. It's in need of some TLC and a good bath. Yeah, that's right. It's a leaf blower. Sue me. It's not an expensive air dryer. This works fine. Now, if serious car washing isn't your bag, it's not something you've been into very much, and you're wondering why I'm going through this effort of blow drying and wiping down the car, well, I'll fill you in. It's because the water, no matter how clean it is coming out of your tap or your bucket, no matter how many sort of in-house water filters you're running, it still is not pure H2O. It's going to have minerals in it at a very minimum. And those minerals are basically metals, rocks, things like iron, right? They will stay behind and not evaporate once the water evaporates. So what that means is if you just let the car air dry, all those little spots of water that are sitting here, they're all carrying those minerals and deposits. And once those little droplets dry out, those minerals and deposits stay behind on your paint. And over time, they start looking pretty bad. Now in the short term, you'll notice them on your windshield as little dots that are sort of hard to get off, sometimes impossible to get off. But over time, they'll turn into like a haze on your paint that's really hard to get off. So you're always better off making sure your car dries off fully after you've gotten it wet like this. At least until you get a good wax coat on it. Here's another little tick for you. And you didn't ask, but you're getting it anyway. I buy really cheap microfiber towels. Really cheap. Like, buy them in the 100 pack from Amazon cheap. And I have a technique. When they're brand new and out of the package, still have a tag on them, they're good enough to use on paint. But as soon as I use them on paint the first time, I tear the tags off of them, and then they go into another pile. The second pile, they're good for other things. I can clean wheels with them, I can clean tires with them, I can clean the interior with them, I can do a bunch of other stuff with them. Once they get too dirty there to work with, then they move on to being rags. Once they're no good as rags, they get thrown out. And you just keep on recycling through them. Works like a charm, and these things are cheap enough that you don't mind it. Well guys, here we are, out on our first drive, solo anyway. I've just set the speedometer, so I hope that's right. We'll find out. Ooh, she rowdy. Still playing with the throttle return spring because it's really stiff. So the throttle's a little tight right now. So I still gotta play around with that a little bit. I still want that throttle to return, so I want the spring to work. But obviously I don't want to feel like I'm pushing my foot into cement every time I step on the throttle. So I gotta find that balance. I had to do that last time. I changed out the carb too, so it's not a big surprise. She sounds absolutely amazing. Very responsive. Very snappy. I'm cruising along here at about 45 and we're running at about 1800 RPM. So that's not too bad. I made a conscious decision to keep the odometer at 0 with the new motor. Some of you might be questioning that. I questioned it. I went back and forth on it. But ultimately, I felt like it was the right thing to do. Part of the reason is because I'm 95% sure that this isn't the original dash and therefore not the original odometer to this car. So right off the bat, the likelihood that the odometer reading that was in this car when I got it being real to the car, those chances are slim to none. Secondly, I know that the odometer was broken for the last year that I was driving it, so it wasn't recording the mileage correctly anyway. So I know that the mileage, even since I've owned it, is not right on that odometer. And then finally, this is not an all original or numbers matching car. So there's nothing precious about the odometer reading. It's nothing critically important. And the odometer reading that was on there the last time was getting critically close to 100,000 miles anyway. So I really shouldn't have to file any sort of discrepancy paperwork on this going back to 0. Ultimately, it makes sense to me to have the odometer read 0 to time out with the new engine. That way, It makes it easy for me knowing how many miles and hours are on the actual engine that is brand new in the car. And that's something to gauge it off of. I sort of put myself in the shoes of, if I was buying this car from somebody, would I want the odometer reading to read what the last odometer in the car read, which is sort of not related to anything? Or would I want that odometer to relate to something like the mileage of the engine? Simple choice for me. Gotta love that part. I mean, I'm not even really getting into the throttle and this thing's just roaring. It really doesn't take much. And this is still, by the way, with 256 gears in it. 256! Fantastic on the highway, but holy cow, not in the sweet spot for this car. Not for this motor. This motor wants to be at a higher RPM than that. Now, I don't want to count my chickens, as they say, and I don't want to promise too much for you guys before it can come true. But I do have plans and hopes that I'm going to get a new rear end for this car. So this much horsepower, this much sauce, if you will, doesn't really fit a one-legger. This is an open diff rear end, and it's only 256 gears. So what I would like to do, and what I'm entertaining right now, is maybe getting a new full rear end for this, a 9-inch rear end that's made for the A-body with 350 gears and a posi, which should really, I mean, this car's already livened up significantly. It's great right now. But if I throw 350 gears in this, I might get into a lot of trouble. All right, guys, well, that's about all she wrote for this one. Got her out there on a nice little shakedown cruise, spun her out in the back roads around town, took you along for most of it. We got about 50 miles on her or so, filled up the tank with some 93. So she's got a full tank of gas now, or more or less full tank of gas. Racked up about a total of 50 on the odometer now. So she's got some miles in her. It was a good leg stretch, ran great. She's running good, no weird sounds, no weird smoke. The headers have mostly burned off now, so everything's sounding good. That is probably about all we have to write on this one right now. There's still more stuff that I would love to do to this car over the summer, and I will still be doing stuff. It'll still make its appearances back on the program over the coming summer months, but truthfully, what I'm really anxious to do is get out and drive this car. We've got several different cruises that I'm planning on doing over the upcoming weeks and months. I've got a car show at work that we're actually planning to do. We've got a cruise with the Chevelle Club that I'm planning to do on May 3rd, and plenty of cruise nights locally that I'll be doing. I'll post some of those for some of you guys who are actually local. I know a couple of people have expressed in comments hoping to see me maybe with the car out at some local events. I'll make sure I post some of those. Those will most likely be posted to the Facebook and Instagram pages. So if you follow Facebook and Instagram, that's where you're most likely to see me post where we're going to be with the car if we're going to any shows. So be sure to like or subscribe or follow those Facebook and Instagram pages. And that's the easiest way to find out where we're going to be. So far, very, very happy with the Dakota Digital dash system. That was really, really easy to set up. I got a little bit more work to do on setting up the calibration for speed. I think I was just a touch off on my mile marker because my speed is now just a touch off from where it was just yesterday with the out-of-the-box tune. So live and learn. We'll get that figured out and we'll get it dialed in. It'll drive me nuts until it's dialed in perfect. So I'll definitely stick with it. There's more stuff coming this season for this. I am definitely going to get a new radiator for it. This radiator, just that single core radiator, it gets hot. This thing was already getting up to nearly 200 degrees just from the cruise around here, and it's only like 65 here today. So it's not hot enough for it to be getting that hot. So I am definitely going to need to get a much bigger, cooler radiator with some electric fans to be able to keep this thing at temperature as we're cruising around. That'll come in the next month or two. I'll definitely post that when we go through that effort. But the big story now is that now I've got this where I want it to be roughly, and I can drive this around again. It's time to get back on the IROC, and I know a lot of you will be happy about that. We've still got an awful lot of stuff that we've got to purchase for the IROC, but that'll be coming up soon, and plenty of stuff that we can do on the motor in the meantime to get that all pieced together and stuff to sort out. So that will be coming soon. I do think we are going to take a week off, so I'll let you guys know about that. More than likely we will take, this video will be coming out next week, but we'll take a week off from that just so that I can actually see what my family looks like again, because we've been going pretty nuts on this thing for a while. So appreciate your patience as you wait through a week of no video, or maybe just videos of me doing cruise nights and stuff. It'll probably be lame. But until then, guys, thanks very much for sticking around with the journey. I know the Chevelle's not a favorite for a lot of you guys, but thanks for sticking around with it, and hopefully it was a good payoff for this motor. And pretty soon we'll be posting some shots of me doing some riskier stuff and maybe some burnouts with this thing. But right now, I'm still just getting this thing sort of tuned in and dialed in. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel. And until the next time I see you, keep throwing wrenches.